Welcome to Soul Sunday at Heart, Soul, and Art today in Marietta, Georgia. I'm Sharron Ragan, and I am going to be talking about what does it mean to be spiritual. This is the first in the beginning of our Soul Sundays here at Heart, Soul, and Art, and I am hopefully going to be building I guess I would call it a congregation, but a group of individuals that are interested in being a part of what we call sort of an interfaith or interdenominational, or it doesn't even have to really be what I call interfaith. It just has to be individuals that are interested in expanding their spiritual self. So today we're challenged with a lot of things in our world, and I thought it would be appropriate to start off by talking about what does it mean? What does it really mean to be a spiritual being? I'm sure there's a lot of definitions, and I took a lot of time to really research and think about what those behaviors would be. And I've come up with what I would like to present today is 6 behaviors of really tapping into your spiritual self. So I'd like to welcome everyone here today. And one thing that I'll start with is that being spiritual is really not something that what I call one size fits all. And I think we know that because we come from all different faiths, all different denominations, or we just come from just life, just from living and moving through life as we know it. And it really is what I consider a personal journey. It's our own personal journey, and it's also a choice. It's a choice that you make based on who you believe you are and what you believe in. And as I said, in today's world, there's so much controversy. It's hard sometimes to even say, well, what do I believe in? Who am I? Or is this person telling the truth, or is this person telling the truth, or is this really chaos, or is this the way the world should be? I mean, we all have our different feelings about what's going on around us. And so, before we even start, I want you to just take a minute and I want you to just learn a little bit about breathing, because breathing can help us really resolve a lot of chaotic energy that's with us. And so just take a moment. I would like for you to close your eyes. And as you close your eyes, just think about your breath. And I want you to take 3 or 4 deep breaths, but as you take those breaths, I would like for you to imagine that you are breathing in, that you're breathing in the goodness of the world, that anything and everything that's good, you're breathing that into your life. And as you breathe out, you're letting go of anything that is worrying you, any fears, anything that feels chaotic, and that you just take a moment, and this is something you could do every day. Just breathe in the goodness, breathe in the light, just beautiful light. And then release that in your breath. Release the negativity out into the air so it can dissipate. Just do that for a few minutes. Think about this. Breathing is life. Breathing is life. Okay, and now you can open your eyes, come back into presence, and I want you to remember one thing. When we are born, the first thing that happens is we have the breath of life. We hear that first cry of that child that's born, and they're like breathing in air. And that is our first breath of life. And then as we go through life, and when we reach an age, 60, 70, 80, 90, whatever that age is, we take our last breath. And if you think about that, between your first breath and your last breath, air is the one thing that we all need. We can survive a lot of days without water. We can survive a lot of days without food. But we can only survive a few minutes without breath. And that's why breath is so important, because if we continually prompt ourselves with breath, it can help us tap into our spiritual selves. It can help us tap into our spiritual wisdom, and it also can help us grow. So when you feel stressed, when you feel like there's chaos in the world, tap into your breath. So becoming spiritual, what does that mean? All right, well, it really kind of means looking within ourselves. It also means challenging ourselves. So imagine a journey where each step reveals a layer of who you are. You might find old fears. You might start finding deep buried pain. Or you also might find a lot of untapped desires, like dreams and hopes and wishes that you have. And you really want to bring those to life. But what happens is that we contribute not only to ourselves as we grow and as we build our spiritual self, but we also contribute to those all around us. That could be your family, your friends, your co-workers. And how do you begin to step into a spiritual behavior that supports others? Well, becoming or identifying as a spiritual being also means seeing the divine in others. Now, and I'm not talking about others who are happy and who agree with you and they're your friends. It also means seeing the divine in people that maybe are not happy, people that are angry, people that are in chaos or in discord, or they've got things going on, or as we like to call in the world today, people who we call the haters. And, you think about the haters, well, they're human beings too. And how can we see the divine in them? It's so important for us to look past judgments. And I have to say that's been one of my hardest journeys, is to learn not to judge. As a human being, I will probably always have moments of judgment. And judgment could be anything. It could be that, oh, I don't like the color of that car that person just bought. That's a judgment. I have a right not to like the color, but it's probably not right for me to say, why would somebody buy a car that color? Because that's judgment. Judgment is all around us. Everywhere we go, everything we do, we are continually judging. And that is one area of my life that I've worked very hard on, to begin to stop judging and recognizing when I do judge. Because if you can recognize when you judge others, then you're on your way to being more open, more accepting. See, we have to remember that we're all connected. So when I judge you or you or you, when I judge you, I am judging myself, but I'm also putting an energy out there that is not positive, because now I'm spreading judgment all in the world. And I'm becoming what I call the ripple effect of society, which I'm putting out negative energy. And so what happens is that we really want our world to become a place of possibility rather than a world of division, because we're judging. And if we could put more of our energy into working with each other instead of judging each other, and maybe even sometimes understanding why we might feel the way we would, then what would happen is that loving kindness would no longer be a random act, it would be a choice. Because if we stop judging, we can start loving others and being kinder to each other. I also believe that being spiritual is about surrendering to the wisdom of the universe. And when I talk about the universe, I mean what I call a greater power. I personally can't define what the greater power is. I just know, for me, there is some form of a greater power. I mean, how did we all get here? How did we grow? How did we develop? How did we move into where we are today in the growth of the world and of economy and of inventions? And, as we've come from what we like to call the cave people or the original people on the world, how did we grow to where we are today? And the reality is that we progressed. Our brains improved, our bodies improved, we improved the world. And yet, as we did that, we would hope that we would do it together. But over time, again, judgment seeps in. And really, judgment is probably, in my opinion, the one step that keeps you from being the spiritual being that you want to be. Also, being spiritual is about surrendering to the wisdom of the universe. Wisdom is also inside of us and outside of us. We do have natural wisdom. There's just sometimes that we know things. We just know. And one of the best uses of wisdom is through your intuition. We all talk about gut feelings, gut intuition, mother's intuition, and those are real. Those are definitely real. A mother can tell the difference between a baby's cry of pain, a baby's cry of hunger, and a baby's cry just because it is frustrated. Because immediately if your child's in another room and you hear a certain cry, oh my gosh, that means something. But that's a form of an intuitive knowing, a connection. You know it immediately. And so we all have that ability. And we can take that ability and take it even further if we allow ourselves to open up. We really have to let go of what I call the control of the fact that we have to control everything, and we have to trust in our own intuitive process. That's the hardest thing for most people. For me, one of the biggest steps for me in stepping into my spiritual self was to begin to acknowledge my intuition. And once I acknowledged my intuition, then I was able to start trusting when things happened, whether they happened in a good way or a bad way. And control is another area that kind of trips us up a little bit, because when we get so much in control of having to control situations, then we lose sight of what we're really trying to do. See, there are times where I believe that maybe we have lessons. I don't really like to use the word lesson, and perhaps I could say maybe we have challenges and we have opportunities, but it's also about us learning how to navigate the challenges and how to navigate the opportunities. And by learning to do that, we also learn, again, to stop judging. And again, that old judging stuff will just come up on us all the time. And when you stop judging, you get little whispers sometimes. It's like little whispers of spirituality. And it's like the sound sometimes of a flowing river, or the sound of the leaves rustling, or just sometimes just a quiet peace that says, oh, let me take a moment and just listen, and let me see if there's anything that's coming through. And, oh, wait a minute, is that my mind making this up? No, maybe that is a whisper. Maybe that is guidance. Maybe that's direction. That's what starts to happen when you're tapping into your spiritual self. I had a client once in a class say that there were often times where she clearly would hear her name. She'd say, I'd turn around and look and go, who spoke that? Who said my name? There was no one there. And she was like, I heard it. I heard my name loud and clear. And I said, well, I think something, spirit, perhaps guidance, was working on trying to get your attention. And maybe at that point in time, you would take the moment to pay attention. It was probably opening the door for you to hear something. Who are you? What are you all about? What is some wisdom that may be coming through? So there are times when you really can hear in what I call your inner hearing. It doesn't mean you hear it through your ears, but you're hearing something in your head, and it can become like a strong thought, but it's not your mind, it is your wisdom, your inner wisdom. So, in addition to all of what I've said so far, being spiritual is about choosing love over hate. Now that sounds really easy, but it's not so easy for a lot of people, because I believe there's two emotions. There's love and there's fear. And if we are not in what we call a loving being state, we are in a state of fear. And a state of fear can show up as wanting to have control, being afraid of something, being resistant, being angry, being even irritated at somebody. I'm irritated at what they're saying. You're not in a loving place when you're thinking that. And again, think about it, you're judging. And so there's a difference also with recognizing or perhaps observing the facts, which is okay, because you can observe facts and not judge, but you also have to make sure you watch yourself and that you're not judging, you're just kind of observing. Oh, that person talks an awful lot, that kind of irritates me. However, why am I irritated? Could I just be patient, calm down, relax, and just move myself into a more loving place and maybe really listen to that person? And if I just listen and really try to hear what they're saying, that maybe I move myself into a state of love because I'm just accepting who they are. And that's kind of how it goes sometimes. So it's really about, like I said, we strive to embody love. We want to be what I call the light in the moment of darkness. Recently we've had a lot of controversy in our world, and unfortunately elections bring out a lot of energy with a lot of people. The goal is, though, it's really not, in my opinion, it's really not who wins or loses. It's the impact that it's had, the impact that it has on all of us in a positive and perhaps a not so positive way. And for anyone that has had a not so positive experience, the point is sometimes we must look at that and ask ourselves, why do we feel this way? And can we shift that? Maybe we can't, but can we? And that's always the question I think you have to ask yourself. Can you shift it? Can you see something on the other side? And I do believe we're always going to have what I call negotiation or maybe even conflict, but we can come to terms. We can in anything that we do. Whether you're in a relationship situation, even look at divorce in the world today. People that are divorcing, and the anger and the hatred and all the things that come out of people when they're separating. And it goes back to, how can you put yourself in a state of love? Because if you're not in that state of being, you're in a state of fear. And the goal is to try to eliminate fear in our lives, unless it's fear of being protected, like fear, like maybe we're in a dangerous situation and you know that you need to get out of this place, or you need to get out of this situation, because the fear could be physical, spiritual, or mental harm. And that's when fear plays a role. That's when rage plays a role. I said to someone one time that I've had rage in my life, but now I know where it lives, and I know where I put it and where I use it. And I know now if someone tries to mug me or something that is going to harm me, I know where my rage lives, and my rage could save me. But that's, to me, the best use of it. And so you also have to look at how can you protect yourself with the emotions that you have. Because you don't, I mean, I can say, yes, we're all loving, peaceful people, and we just won't, we won't worry about anything. But if we do have a moment to be in a place of fear, we have the right to bring up the emotion that will serve us and also protect us. So let's talk about, I'm going to talk about what I call the 6 behaviors of really helping you become what I call a more spiritual being, or to start to step into a spiritual being. So number 1, and I've talked about this in just recently. First, we want to maintain compassion without judgment. All right, that sounds easy, right? Not always so easy. So your behavior is that you're grounded in compassion, especially when you're dealing with those that might be unhappy or closed off. And think about your relationships sometimes. How do you maintain compassion when someone doesn't want to listen to you? You also offer kindness without trying to fix others. Now that's a big deal, because many of us try to fix people. We try to make the situation right, and we really can't do that. It's really up to the other person. And then also, you have to refrain from judging somebody else's journey. I kind of have this thing where I see a lot of homeless people around in some of the areas where I've been, and I realize sometimes that it's not up to me to fix their problems, because I know there are a lot of people like, oh my gosh, we've got to give this person money, we got to give them money when we see them, and that's okay, because that's also compassion. But also sometimes you have to step back when you see the same person doing the same thing over and over. Sometimes you have to let them live their journey. You have to let them definitely be the person that they can be. And then also you have to practice this non-judgment and acceptance. And you're always, what I say, you have to practice non-judgment. But what would the challenge become? The challenge is that you're always around judging people, if they're gossiping or they're telling stories or, they're criticizing others. The goal is you don't want to be involved in that. You want to walk away. Or you want to say, gee, this isn't a conversation that I really want to be a part of. Because if you participate in that, then you become part of that energy. So the spiritual behavior would be just a refrain, just like I said. And also it would be that you respond yourself with sort of an open compassion toward those individuals. And you would actually say in the moment, you know what, guys, is there any way that we could think positively about this situation? Become an influencer. You don't always have to walk away from it. The second step in behavior of really working on becoming what I call a more spiritual being, is also to respect others' resistance to change. Now, that's the hardest thing for me. I'm just going to say that. That's the hardest thing for me. When I see others that are just resisting change in their life, that part of me wants to go fix them. It's like, oh, I want to give them all the details. I want to tell them all the things that they can do, and I want to see them take the steps and all of that. The reality is that I can't force change on anyone. What I can do is that I can change my behavior. And if I change my behavior toward that individual, if I'm spending a lot of time with them, if I change my behavior in how I react to them, that might influence them somehow to change their behavior. But the reality is we can't change anyone. But we do have to hold space for their growth. We have to have faith. And when you have faith in someone being able to maybe improve or step into a better situation in their life, when you hold that faith, it's like an energy, and somehow it touches them. And it might touch them or it might not. But if you are patient and you have faith, you might be surprised. the reality is that you just have to stay positive. So what would the challenge be, like when we have that situation? So right now, what's our biggest challenge? We have a world still filled with a lot of negativity. And so we have to shift ourselves into a more positive place. And that's really up to each of us individually. I mean, I know I have a lot of things that I feel around me that are just negative, and I every day think, how can I shift that? How can I not feel that I'm in that sea of negativity? But what would my behavior be on a daily basis? Well, my behavior would be is, number one, don't let this negativity affect me, because what I want to do is raise others up, not allow others to push me down. And so you just have to maintain your optimism. Find ways to be optimistic. Maybe it's a quick prayer in the morning. Maybe it's a quick meditation. Maybe it's journaling. Maybe it's just sitting in silence and getting yourself ready for the day to truly put positivity out in the world, and think about how you could be kind. Like, what is the way I could be kind today to someone maybe that's not having such a great day? So that's a possibility. So step 3 would be practicing emotional detachment from negativity. Now that's a hard one too. And I know a lot of us have gone through that. When you're confronted by negativity or unhappiness, you practice emotional detachment. And that's what spiritual people do, is they practice emotional detachment. And they don't allow others' energies to disrupt your peace. And what you do is you start setting healthy boundaries. I'm going to set a healthy boundary around this individual. They're always wanting me to solve their problems. They're always wanting me to fix their problems. And I must set a healthy boundary. And I will admit, I've been a part of those types of situations for many times in my life. And I think we call it enabling, where we're enabling someone's behavior to continue. And as a spiritual being, I realize sometimes we have to step back and say, no, you're on your own journey. It's not up to me. Again, we talk about that fixing. It's not up to us to do that. And it's hard because we encounter a lot of people who thrive on us fixing their problems. And you have to detach yourself from their negativity. And then, your behavior, how you can help yourself, remove yourself from that, is you respond in a calm manner rather than reacting to their request or their suggestion or even their behavior, which could be very negative. You also work hard to stay grounded. Remain staying grounded. Remain being conscious, being present of what's happening in the moment. And what you want to do is you want to remove yourself from their turmoil and move yourself into a more peaceful place. The 4th step is that you can move into what we call positive reframing. And positive reframing sometimes is really beneficial in what we call challenging situations. So let's say that you practice reframing by looking for lessons or positive aspects. When faced with negativity, you gently offer a new perspective. You subtly guide others toward understanding that challenges can be opportunities for growth. And there's many, many examples of that when someone encounters a challenge. Think about the number of people who've gone through perhaps work situations where it was very negative, and maybe they were even released from their job, and then later they realized that was the best thing that happened to them because they were able to maybe recognize their behavior, which their behavior could have been positive. They just could have been in a toxic environment. But they're able to look back and say, wow, I really saw the positive in that situation. I really saw what was going on, and I've learned from that, and I'm going to do something about that. Some of the most difficult situations that I've known of people reframing a negative situation into a positive situation is think about the number of nonprofits or movements or organizations that have developed as a result of something negative that happened in the world. Someone who perhaps had a child that passed from drug overdose, and then all of a sudden they step up and they go out into the world and speak to other children, other teens, other people about, drugs and about how they can take your life. But they're reframing a negative situation and turning it into a positive situation, and also at the same time becoming a spiritual being that is spreading love and kindness throughout the world. And so you want to be able to learn, how can you reframe a situation? How can you see the silver lining in the dark cloud? So your behavior around any situation like that would be to show empathy and kindness without enabling this a negative behavior or a negative situation. And also don't allow yourself to become drained when something negative comes about in your life, because it can take your energy. And again, when you're reframing, you also have to think about setting boundaries. You set boundaries in your life, again, and you don't let whatever that negative situation was continue to creep in to your boundary. The fifth step is staying grounded in authenticity and integrity. And that may be something that a lot of people focus on, because we don't always take the time to sit down and think, what is my authenticity? What does being congruent mean for me? Because when you are congruent, when you are thinking, feeling, and being the same energy, you are now being your authentic self. If you're saying one thing and doing another, you're not being authentic, because you're not being a congruent person. You may find that it's difficult sometimes to stay in integrity based on the group of people or environments or situations that you're in. How many people have been perhaps brought into different belief systems because the group began to believe something, even though you didn't believe it, but over time, they just said it enough over and over and over and over that you begin to believe it. And that's when you kind of let go of your authenticity. Now, if you believe it, truly believe it, that's okay. But you also have to ask yourself, do I really believe this, or am I just being like, I feel uncomfortable if I say no. I feel uncomfortable if I say I don't believe that. And again, we've all had too many situations where that will suck the spiritual energy out of us, because we have to stay true to ourselves. And I do believe that this really boils down just being true to who you are and recognizing, who am I? What do I believe? What do I want to do in this world? How do I want to touch others or impact others? It's so important. And the way that you behave in situations like this is that you just stick to your principles. You stick to your principles without compromise, and then you lead by example. And that's one of the key steps. Lead by example. Be the light. Be the love. Be the person that you believe that you are, and don't let anyone take that away from you. And the final step, or the final behavior in beginning to tap into you as a spiritual being, is to really exhibit and practice patience and understanding. And to recognize that we don't all think alike. We don't all believe the same things. We don't all have the same opportunities. And that there are situations that are fair and unfair for many people. And, in order to exhibit patience and understanding is the best avenue to learning all about change, is to being able to accept change. You remain, if you have this more of if you really are stepping into your spiritual self, you're going to learn to remain patient and calm and not allow others to really bombard you with, beliefs and understandings. You just can kind of remain calm, and you can respect others no matter what they think. And respecting others no matter what they think is a form of compassion and patience. And also, we have to learn to be empathetic to others. We really do. We may not agree with somebody, we may not think that they're even a good person, but who are we to judge that person? If we maybe had empathy and we think about, well, what is that person? How are they feeling? That's when we're starting to be a little more empathetic. And we must recognize that everyone has a purpose. Everyone has passion. And that passion may not be ours, or our passion may not be theirs. And to recognize that is also another level of stepping into your spiritual self. So the challenge in being patient and being compassionate is that people that are resistant to change will perhaps try to convince you of what they believe, or they may make you wrong for not believing what they believe. And what you must do is just say, it's okay. I respect you, and I'm okay. And you don't have to allow them to pull energy from you because they're making you out to be wrong because you don't believe what they believe. Basically, the best thing to do is to remove yourself from that energy. And, you just remain open. You want to be curious. You want to learn. You want to understand. I know there's been many situations where people have a complete opposite opinion of what I believe. And so my step has been, okay, well, let's talk about this. Share with me how you came to this belief. Many years ago, I spent a lot of time in China, and I had a guide and an interpreter that was with me pretty much 24/7 wherever I went. And I remember us having conversations about communism. And I loved to be able to hear her give me her insight of her life in a country that, in my belief, restricted her. But when I listened to her, and she had been in this country, obviously from a child, she gave me a different view. Now, I didn't necessarily agree with everything that she shared with me. However, there were things that I realized that she was proud of. There were things that I realized that were spiritual and dear to her. And I, for the first time ever, could respect and see the other side. And it was a huge revelation for me. But because I was open, I listened, I took the time to think about what would that mean for me? How would I handle that? And it was a great awakening for me. And it gave me the opportunity to recognize how other people think sometimes when they have a different situation than you have. And so that's one of the best examples, is to always remain open. Now, if remaining open all of a sudden becomes an argument where the other person is trying to convince you or you're trying to convince them, you're not going to get anywhere. Then you've got to say, okay, we're agreeing to disagree, and you kind of move on. But if you can remain compassionate and empathetic, and you can be open to someone else, you will open something in you. And that's really what it's about, is that you will open a part of yourself. So these kinds of behaviors can help you begin to step into your spiritual self. And along the way, you'll learn a lot. You'll maybe even get frustrated. You'll have challenges. You'll have opportunities. But the reality is that in the long run, you'll become a better person. And I believe that we are here to share love, We're here to accept others, and then we're here to be the light. We are truly here to be like a beacon of light, to help others and to make a difference in others' lives. So no matter what you think or what you feel, if anything that I said here today resonated with you, I hope that you'll take the time and the journey to step into it, and to learn more about you and to learn more about your spiritual self. And in the long run, I think the last piece of this is that it's just about learning how to love others and how not to judge. If we can just do those two things, if we can just pay attention when we're judging and then ask ourselves, am I in a fear state right now, or am I in a loving state? And if you can shift that energy just like that, then you will be a better person for it. So thank you for letting me share with you my views and perspectives today, and I hope that you'll join us in our next journey.